can't stop.
Won't stop, can't stop, I'm in my zone.
3 voices, 3 opinions, 3 sides. 1 Equalizer, ZTF.
Welcome to the Collins Three Brothers with ZTF, where there's 3 sides to every story. I'm Uncle Sean.
I'm Richie Rich.
And I'm Hot Rod, bring the heat.
Zeke the Freak, the Equalizer.
The Equalizer. And today, gentlemen, we have a special guest who deserves many flowers for his public service over time. We'll get into that. But let's go around and see what you guys feel about today's guest, starting up with Richie Rich.
Well, I was thinking as we talk, when we cover certain subjects, we usually have, my opinion is different than yours, different than Stace's, and then Zeke kind of settles it out, or even you try to figure out which side he might lean on. But with this guest, man, I don't think we're going to have a different opinion. I think we're all going to be on the same accord, and we're going to be blessed with this particular guest here.
Yeah, I hear you, Rich. Like we all say, it's three sides to a story here, but I'm always on the other side. And after reading about today's guest, I thought we was having God himself on the show today.
Amen.
And Zeke, I know you stepped away.
Yeah, I just had to grab my glasses so I could see a little bit better.
You
professional.
Yeah, well, you know how I feel. I mean, the religious, anybody that's, has a background in religion, I always like that discussion. As myself, I'm not really a religious person. So, the questions I'll, bring are going to be interesting to hear the answers. And maybe my opinion can be swayed at any point. You never know.
All right, and my insight goes in with the title of the episode itself, From the Broadcast to the Pulpit, A Life of Purpose, Poetry, and Public Service, which kind of outlines the beginning for the pastor, where he chose, or his passion throughout life, and then what he chose to turn to later on. So with that, let's go ahead and introduce our guest for today. Our guest today is Reverend Donald L. Marbury. Did I say that right, Pastor? Marbury, an ordained elder in the African Methodist Church and senior pastor of the historic Ebenezer AME Church in Hagerstown, Maryland. Before the pulpit, Reverend Marbury spent nearly 3 decades shaping American public television, retiring as vice president of domestic and international programs for PBS, parent company, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. He is also a nationally acclaimed poet and the author of the award-winning spiritual audio biography, My People, My God. From the broadcast to poetry to the pulpit, this is a life of purpose. Let's give it up for Reverend Marbury. Welcome.
Absolutely. Right. We should have flying angels coming down, man.
Maybe I'll get those special
in the background.
It's a background. We can't see it now, but how you doing today, Pastor, Reverend?
Doing well, and just blessed and honored to be with the 3 Collins brothers and ZTF. Yes, indeed.
So before we get started, we've been holding off launching for many reasons, but one of the main ones was we needed somebody, outside of ZTF, which is, we know we need him. We felt we needed someone to bless the show before we launch officially. And so we've been holding off on this episode. Plus we had this will be our official first episode. And we had a little back and forth with Hot Rod at some point. And, we know we can't. Yeah, the Collins Three Brothers, we can't do it without all the brothers. So I just wanted to make sure I get that in there for our first introduction, our first episode that's going to be going out. Hot Rod, he's supposed to be coming in hotter than ever. And he's looking fantastic, true professional. as he is. And so with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'll start out with, question, how did you get started in the broadcasting business early on? Like what pointed you in that direction? Reverend Marbury.
It was Sean, it was the Lord, because I had no design, no idea that I was going to end up in television and broadcasting. I'm a writer. The one strong gift that the Lord has given me is that I can write. Words are my métier. They are important to me, and they have served me well throughout my life. I was the little kid in grade school, in inner city Black grade school, that they used to come and get and take to the suburbs to show the white kids that inner city Black kids could speak well and could use words and were intelligent. So words have always been a part of my life, mainly because I had asthma as a child. Didn't grow out of it until I was 13 years old. So I couldn't go, I was allergic to everything. I couldn't go outside. And so I looked through the window at the kids playing outside and wanting to be out there, but I couldn't. So my best friends became this 25-pound dictionary that we had in the house. Every Black household had one of those back in the day, and also the 25-pound Bible. And those two books became my best friends, and I spent my waking hours with them. So
how old were you then, Pastor? How old were you then? How old were you then? Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But how old were you?
That was all the way up until I was 13 years old. Having to stay in the house, most of the time, because of asthma. Man, I used to have to go get a shot every week, a great big shot in my arm every week. That's why I ain't scared of needles. But I wrote throughout. I was editor of our little grade school newspaper and editor of the middle school journal, and then the high school a yearbook I was editor of. Then when we got to college, by my senior year, I was editor of the University of Pittsburgh Pitt News. We published 3 times a week, and my senior year as editor-in-chief, we were chosen as the top collegiate journal in America. Which was quite an honor. I thought about going into newspapers. I had worked as an intern for the local daily newspaper in Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, as a cub reporter, 2 summers in a row, and figured that's what I was going to be doing. But my advisor on the Pitt News when I was in college was recruited by Channel 13, the local public television station. And the Black community was putting tremendous pressure on the station because they were starting a new news program. And the Black community was organized in those days and wanted to make sure that there was Black representation on the air for the anchor people and the reporters. And the station put out a call for a young Black guy with journalism experience who would work cheap. Well, that was my resume. And before I knew it, because of the guy who was the advisor on the Pitt News and who was now working at the station, I was 21 years old and on the news every night, having had no television experience. I was really bad. I'm not being falsely modest when I say I was really bad. I could not get through a newscast without making a major mistake.
Like what?
But the Lord hung with me. and allowed the station to have patience with me. And after about 6 months, it all clicked. They liked my voice. That's the reason they kept me on there. They liked my look on the air. The afro was out to here in those days, and I thought I was cute. And I had this voice thing going on. So, that was the beginnings of my career. They later gave me a little half-hour talk show, black show to do, Black Horizons, the oldest black show on the air in America until it went off the air about 10 years ago. And I was the producer, host of that, and it became must-watch TV in Pittsburgh. It was basically an interview show, but we did all kind of things. I bring a theater group in from the university, and we stage a play. I gave August Wilson his first television interview. Any celebrities, black celebrities who were coming into Pittsburgh, I was able to book and get an interview with and do a show with. Because I was a jazz singer, I knew all the musicians in town, so we bring in the musicians and stage a half an hour jazz concert. We just did amazing things. We didn't know any better. We didn't know what you couldn't do in TV, and we broke down a lot of doors and did a lot of good work. So that was my career. That was the beginning of my career, which I did for 10 years, on air, all the time. But at some point, when you're 21 guys and on TV, it's a groove.
I probably was watching Sesame Street back
when you're
then.
30, and it becomes an intrusion in your life. And plus, I was producing and directing shows for national and regional and the state. And I got a lot of more gratification from that than being a celebrity. Mm-hmm. So when the Corporation for Public Broadcasting in DC came in and they recruited me to come to DC to become the first associate director of children's and cultural programs. And that's what brought me to the network level. All right, I've talked too much. I'm sorry.
No, you were good.
No, you're good.
I was going to compare that to today's technology, where it's much easier to do a lot of the things you guys were doing back then. Do you see maybe doing more in today's technology with the things you guys were doing back then with the producing and everything
goodness.
else?
Yeah, man. Right. Sean, man, the cameras that were used back in my day, the studio cameras, I mean, they weighed a ton, man.
Right,
you had the rack focus, you were using 2-inch tape, the technology today allows anyone who has an inclination and a proclivity to become a media person. Back in the day, you had to learn some things. When I would go out on a story and for newsroom, the hour-long the nightly news program that I was on, I go out and we use film, man. We weren't there. There wasn't video. We used films, and it was black and white, magnetic, a one-sided film that we edited manually. You cut out the parts you didn't want and edited it manually. Today, it's hit a button. So yeah. But I don't know, in answer to your question, I don't know that media is so much better than back in my day.
Right.
I don't know that it's so much better because it's more accessible, but I don't know that it's any better.
Right.
than the things that we did. We did some profound things, because you had to really use your imagination
Right.
and creativity to get the images that you wanted.
And I think
social.
It took so much to just the last thing, Zeke. It took so much to put those things together. You had to seek quality back then, I think. So what you did see, the final versions of anything was the best they thought was available. Nowadays, you just have everybody access to this new technology. And now you just got a flood of stuff. And like you're saying, it's not necessarily quality material coming out that people have access to produce, but you have a plethora of people just throwing different things out for people to see, and the quality level, I think, is not as good, like you were saying. It's not the best.
Or tell AI to do it for you.
Right. No, well, that's where we at now. Yep. They don't even have to do that.
And that's also what happens is, like with our era with social media takes away that human interaction aspect of things. Everybody can just sit in their room and do everything in their room all day. Where, like you said, back in your era, you guys were out, you had to interact with each other. Right. You had to collaborate on things and do it manually together. That's what social media takes away now, and technology definitely takes away that part of things. So, it's not the same. Yeah.
I think that's very astute, Zeke. It is the collaborative effort. We really depended upon one another. All night editing sessions just to put a half an hour program together.
Wow.
All night editing session, with that 2-inch editing tape machine to put a show together. But it was worth it. It was worth it. I mean,
I remember those.
By the time CPB recruited me, I felt that there was nothing in television that I couldn't do. Now, to varying degrees and gradations of quality, I'm not, ego tripping like that, but there was nothing that I didn't know how to do. Documentary, talk show, performance show, dance, music, poetry, interview, you name it. I knew how to make television programs. So,
what did your budgets look like back then?
We had no budgets.
No budget.
But I worked with the station, and I give WQED, which was a national producing station for public broadcasting. WQED in Pittsburgh was the station that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was produced out of. Right. In fact, my office was right next to Mr. Rogers, and he became a very close friend of mine.
What about Sesame
It was
Street?
a national producing station, National Geographic specials, great performances, all of these major shows they produced. They didn't have money to give me and my staff to make the shows that we made, but what they did have was studio time.
Okay.
And so I could get the Studio A, a huge studio, for 4 hours, to make a program. Okay. I had access to the crew that we could go back in the archives of things that they had made for different shows, and we could cannibalize and make sets for our own shows and our own projects. So we didn't have money, but we had wherewithal and time.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna pass it off to Richie Rich. So moving on from broadcast, you started to branch out, or get into the poetry, or that end of poetry. As I guess,
Poetry
how did you see?
Always been, it's always been a part of me. Poetry has always been a part of me. 3rd grade, I won the poetry contest for a poem that I wrote. These fellows vary in size and in names. Some are wild and some quite tame. The wild ones live in climes hot and wet, while the small ones are fuzzy, and used for a pet. Dogs are their enemies, the same with rats. You probably have guessed it. This is all about cats.
About cats. I got
Yo,
that.
Third grade.
I saw that one.
Yes, sir.
That was intriguing. That was a good one. And one word you use, man, is really showing out, right? Is mellifluous. That's how you described yourself. And I had to look that word up. I had to look that up, Pastor. But
so the poetry has always been part, and that was a clue to our success with Black Horizons in the various shows that I produced and directed, because I would write poetry, I would write plays, and we would do them. We would bring them to life on the air. So, there's a piece, she does not know her beauty. She thinks her brown body has no glory. If she could dance naked through the palm trees or see her image in the river, she would know, oh, she would know. But there are no palm trees in the street, and dishwater gives back no image. So I must tell her of her beauty, and I must tell her that I love her, so she will know, so she will know, so she will know. Now, that's not original. I didn't write that. That's Waring Cooney, a 1920s Harlem Renaissance poet whose style was so much like that of Langston Hughes that poor Waring didn't get much play. But that's his most famous poem called No Image. I took that poem and I put that to music and sang it over a recording, put a sister in kind of house cleaning clothes, and had her washing some steps down in the studio, and over that song, I sang that song over her, just to talk about what sisters had done to keep their families together, what Black women had done to keep their families together. So it's so we've always used poetry. We've used the written word, the thoughts of those who, were introspective and retrospective, to talk about our lives, to talk about the history of Black people, the things that we have been through, and it's power. The word is powerful, man. Words are powerful, and people just use words so cavalier, in a cavalier manner, so often. But we waste words when they can uplift, when they can move to anger, to laughter, to joy, to tears, to pause, and to introspection. That's how powerful the words are. The word of God says to be careful that the tongue is more powerful than any great boat, because it can steer you to directions that you don't want to be in, or have your boat landing in rocks, crashing on rocks. The tongue is powerful, man. And I've always had a respect for it. I guess that 25-pound dictionary and 25-pound Bible really had an effect on me.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Hot Rod. You got anything?
Oh, was Rich through there? Yeah, I mean, I could tell, past the broadcaster, man, you could go. I could see that happening. But I want to ask you some questions. How long have you been preaching? Since you was 13 or 21, or how many years?
I've always been in the church, and thank you for that question. I've always been in the church. I was that little kid in Sunday school, and the little old ladies with the ruby red lipstick used to look at me and say, that boy gonna be a preacher. And I'd say, look at them, and they better get out of my face, old lady. I ain't trying to hear nothing like that. I mean, but mom and dad kept us in church, and it became a part of our lives. So much of my writings and memories, are of the church. But no, I had no designs, no plans to be in ministry. I knew that me and the Lord had a thing going on. I knew that there was something special, but so when I was coming out of Pitt, University of Pittsburgh, with my bachelor's, the natural thing with this knowledge that the Lord was talking to me and I wasn't trying to hear him, I should have gone into divinity school or a Bible college or something like that. But I've only discovered this, Stacy, in hindsight. The Lord revealed it to me, in hindsight, that my thorn in the side, my Achilles heel, was always ego. We talked about ego before we started on this podcast. That I always wanted. I aspired to very high heights, but the Lord, knowing that ambition was my Achilles heel, the Lord revealed to me. He said, I ain't gonna let you mess up my ministry. So the Lord made a bargain with me. Again, I didn't know that he was making this bargain with me. He said, I'm gonna let you soar to the highest heights possible in your secular profession. I'm gonna let you do that.
So you know what? Go ahead. My thing, what I want to know is, what was life like before the Lord hit you? You know what I mean? That's what I want to know. Before it hits you, are you always been like that? Or you temptation for things and different things ever hit you before the Lord hit you? I want to know what it was like before that.
I'm a dude, man. Yeah. I'm a dude.
That's what I want to know.
I'm a dude from the community and had all the temptations of a life that have befallen me as well. We all are tempted.
Yeah, I need help.
There's no sin in temptation. It is yielding to temptation. And let me say that I yielded perhaps more than a lot of folk. As the Apostle Paul says in 2 Corinthians, he said, I am the chief sinner there, man, especially when life got good to me, when things were really going well and secular life, man, when I was the dude, when I became the dude, and especially the head of programming, a black man from the Hill District of Pittsburgh, heading up the fourth largest network of television at that time in the world, which was public broadcasting. I controlled all the programming. I controlled that $50 million. People, always were kind to me because I controlled the purse strings. I was the money man. I was traveling the world. I had to travel all over the world, 200 days a year away from home, half of that overseas, making deals for public broadcasting, speaking, from podiums all over the place, pontificating and talking about the importance of educational and public TV. I was popular, man. I was on the cover of Broadcasting magazine, which said I was the most empowered African American male in U.S. broadcasting. You couldn't tell me nothing, boy. I was the dude.
So I know temptation was coming. I want to know them stories.
I ain't gonna give up all my stuff now. It was, especially in that level in them, those hotel room suites You know, and at that time, nose candy was big, and it was big with me. I mean, cocaine and liquor. I had always been a drink. I've been a drinker all my life. My daddy was a drinker, a heavy drinker, and I drank big time and could hold my liquor. I could drink with the best of them. I remember being in, just a little aside, a meeting that I had in Japan. We were discussing a co-production deal, and the Japanese thought that if they just kept bringing me sake, that they were going to be able to get a deal that was on better for them. Well, I drank them under the table and tore them up. But so liquor, drugs, I tried to persevere when it came to the women, because women were always throwing themselves at powerful men. You know, and again, I told y'all I thought I was cute. I remember going to California, and I'll tell this particular story. I think I've told it to you, Stacy, but the particular story, I had a meeting in California. I was going out to California because I had a series that we had given $2 million a year, and it wasn't doing squat. My 347 stations were calling me daily saying, man, ain't nobody watching this show. Y'all, you giving all this money, you know, it's not doing us any good. And so my thing was, when a series or a television show didn't make it, was not good, I would look the executive producer in the eye and tell them that we were pulling the money. This series was produced out of California. It was unfortunately a brother. Was a black series on public broadcasting, and I was going to be in LA for about a week because I had a lot of other meetings. So I flew on out. Had called the executive producer, told him that I needed to have dinner with him. He picked me up at the airport and drove me to my hotel. And I said, okay, I'll see you tonight. I'm sure he knew why I was there. He knew that he had a dud of a series on his hands. It wasn't working. He knew why I was there. So I had been gotten in a hotel room. I had only been in there maybe 45 minutes. I was hanging up my suits because, as I said, I was going to be there about a week. When there was a knock on the door, I opened the door, and there was two women. There was a sister and a blonde, both statuesque, both beautiful, just absolutely stunning. The blonde had on a skirt that was closer to a belt than it was a skirt. And you know,
remember that like it was yesterday.
And the sister had on, now this is LA in the summertime, she had on a full-length fur coat, which she immediately let me know she had nothing on under it. And she said, welcome to LA. We are present from the executive producer.
Please don't fire me.
And I looked and I said, now I had been on travel for a long time. I had been away from my wife for a long time. And I just said, oh, and I don't know where the energy or the imperative came from, but I said,
you turned it down. I think that's when the Lord hit you there. Boom! When you turned that down, I was like,
I said, tell blank that I'll see him at dinner tonight, and I shut the door. Yeah, Lord, not a half an hour later, another knock on the door. I said,
two more?
Open the door. And this was like out of an old movie. A cameraman burst into my room, and he was taking flashes of everything that he could, as quickly as possible. But burst into my room. And what it turns out is that they were
trying to set you up.
Yeah, it set me up. They were gonna, I was gonna get a note saying if you don't refund this series for another year, your wife is gonna get, a brown paper
Wow.
envelope with some pictures in it,
Mm.
and but that all came, with the territory trying to get set up. I had so many drugs put in my drinks at bars with people trying to, have me in a condition where I couldn't function so they could say, well, when we had dinner last night and drinks last night, you said you promised me $50,000 for my documentary, and if I was, drugged up, I would be in a lesser position to deny it.
Right.
So I
Oh
had
yeah, they
had
would have
that
had
all the
me.
time.
My wife would have got the brown envelope. Jeez.
I had folk bribe me, try to, 10, $20,000 for $1 million grant, but I didn't play that. I mean, I praise God that there was a certain honesty that he put into me, and some morals and some integrity that he allowed me to stand by, that served me very well over those days. But yeah, man, I was vulnerable. I come back to my hotel room at night, and there would be women, sitting in front of my hotel room door saying, "Can I get just 5 minutes to pitch my story to you? Let's go in your room." No, you can't come in my room,
Yeah,
darling.
honesty and integrity, Pastor. That's why I'm hoping some of that could just leak into Zeke and Uncle Sean and Rich. Some of that honesty, integrity that
Hey,
me and you
listen,
had.
I've been with my
That me
wife
and you had.
now for 20 something years, and I've been on the straight and narrow, cuz.
Okay.
And you see who is coming from
So-
Hot Rod. So, I mean, just flip it
That's right,
around.
Sean.
Yeah.
That's right, Sean. So yeah, Stacy was saying and pointing the finger at y'all, knowing that he was
Right.
perhaps, well, I ain't gonna
Three
Spotlight.
of them
No,
coming
you can
back
say it,
in.
Pastor. It's all
One,
right.
2, 3. You point, and then the 1, 2, 3 coming back at you.
See?
coming back at you, coming back at you.
Like I
Yes,
said, my
indeed.
wife would have had the brown envelope. That's what I said.
But I will tell you this, and this is the succinct answer to kind of what Stacy was getting at. Came a time when with all of that pomp and circumstance and with all that big time living and celebrity and popularity that I had, that the liquor and the cocaine had gotten to me, and I remember specifically I was out on a week-long bender. The office, CPB didn't know where I was. Sheila and the kids didn't know where I was. I was just out there. I was in sin. And at one point, it hit me, man, you are just a rotten, all the blessings that you have received, and you just thrown it away. You just are rotten to your core. And I decided that I was going to die. And I remember parking my car. Was late at night, wintertime, at 9th and E, Northwest DC. And I just decided that you don't deserve to live. You betrayed your God, your family, and yourself. And about the time I parked the car, and this is nothing but the hand of God, DC was hit with the fiercest ice storm. I may have told y'all this story, but the fiercest ice storm that in memory to this day that I know of. And within moments,
Light came
within
down.
moments, my car with me in it was an ice encrusted tomb. It was a coffin. I mean, I'm talking inch of ice, man, on the car. And it was so cold, guys, man, brothers, it was so cold. But I had sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And I refused to turn on that ignition. I said, I'm going to sit here and I am going to freeze to death. And I meant that thing. I hated myself. And I remember starting to repeat the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. And I was repeating it, and I remember slowing down and I was thinking, all right, well, this is what death is like. This is what death is like. And that's about 12 o'clock at night. And I was awakened about 6 or 7 o'clock that next morning, but I was awakened because coming through that plume of ice was a circle of light, a circle of sunlight shining directly on my face. This is real, y'all. I'm telling y'all real stuff shining on my face that awakened me. And I knew that the Lord wasn't through with me, that he had some things for me to do. And I turned on the ignition, and it thankfully did start up, and took me an hour to warm up that car and get all that ice off. And I headed back home, and folk from my church, because I stayed in church now, living that life, but trying to be there on Sunday mornings, that double life. And when I got to the house, there were some brothers from the church standing in my driveway with Sheila and my wife, and they said, "Welcome home, brother." And I looked at Sheila and I said, "Baby," I said, "I'm sorry." I said, "I think I got to give up this television thing." And she said, "What took you so long? We've been waiting on you." Meaning that she knew that there was more that the Lord had for me too. And I took a buyout. It wasn't a golden parachute, but it was pretty mean. I went back and got my advanced degrees, divinity school, and shortly thereafter was ordained and got my first church, and I pastored for 30 years. 30 years. In that time, I couldn't, of course, give up television cold turkey, so I taught film and television at Howard University for 10 years. And of course, my words were always going to be important to me. So I taught English at Montgomery College here in Maryland for 18 years while pastoring a church. So that's the capsule synopsis.
And I've been fortunate and blessed. And that's the second time I heard that story, and it still sends chills through my body, And I've been fortunate enough to hear it. This is the second time I heard that story. Still chills shot through my body again.
Well, good, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's also, when how he mentioned like how, men in powerful positions are tempted, like you said, if the way you were in broadcasting, as a powerful man, a preacher in the pulpit is a powerful man also.
Say that.
So, you're getting tempted, not just from the business side of things, but also with the religious aspect of things too, because, I have seen what pastors and preachers go through, in the church also,
Yes,
with the similar temptation. So, when you're fighting that on both ends, that has to be rough.
I'm surprised you say that. See, I thought you didn't have faith, man.
No, well, like I said, you gotta remember, I was raised in a very, very religious household.
Right.
My grandparents, my grandfather's the pastor of the church. So when we would visit I went to church every Sunday. When we were younger.
Right.
So we were heavily into the church. At some point, my opinion didn't change until I got older and started getting more into science.
Okay.
It wasn't that I just woke up one day and I was like, one or the other. It was like a gradual process. The more I followed science, the more it was just hard for me to stay involved in the church and be religious, because I was just like, when I compare it to things in the Bible, a lot of it is just scientifically impossible, to what we know now about the universe and the way things go. Like I said, I don't knock anybody. I'm not an atheist. Let me make that clear. I'm an agnostic. I just have a hard time believing there's something out here controlling everything. But when we learn about science, and we can explain why things are the way they are. It can actually scientifically be explained. But like I said, but we cannot prove that there isn't a deity or a God. You can't disprove that. But I have a hard time believing there is, because of the way I follow science. And like I said, I don't want to offend the pastor. That's not my purpose.
He may be able to help you, see the light.
It's just, it's the way I've just, like I said, followed science. And, and the more I learn about science, the less religious I become. And that's what it is.
So, no offense at all. Yeah. There is, I'm a scientist as well, and I find no contradictions. I think that they are parallel, that they complement, that science and religion complement one another very nicely. The numbers of major scientists who are also believers blows my mind quite often. But indeed, you got stuff in you, Zeke, and it ain't gonna go away. All in life is spiritual warfare. Everything in life is spiritual warfare.
That I agree 100%. Yeah.
Many people say, well, I'm not religious. And I understand that, because religion has done a job on people. There have been more people hurt by the church and by church folk. Oh man, I mean, church folk be wasting other church folk. But from my vantage point, there's no one who was hurt more by the church, than Jesus, and he still comes back every week. So it is spiritual warfare. We people say, well, I'm spiritual, but liquor is a spirit. Marijuana and cocaine are spirits. Eating at Golden Corral and filling your plate, 3 times with more food than your body needs, that's a spirit. A shopaholic has a spirit on him or her. A chocoholic has a spirit on them. So all in life is about spiritual warfare. I have been blessed to receive the gift of the Spirit of the living God, whom I know is real, and whom I just have to tell everybody is real, and tell my story to, and hope that they will experience that gift. And all one has to do to experience that gift is to ask the Lord to come into one's heart. He will reconcile all the differences and all the things that seem contrary to one another, and the things that still don't make sense to us, I don't worry about, because if I serve a deity whom I say is the end all and be all of all things, is all knowing, is everywhere, and is all powerful. How should I know everything that an all knowing God knows? He wouldn't be a God if I'm equal to him. So, there are, I believe, as the old folk used to say, we'll understand it better by and by. I believe if the Lord allows me, with all of my clay feet, with all the things that I've done over this life, all my thoughts and words and deeds that have been contrary to him, that have been disobedient to him. But if he allows me, enables me to enter into what I believe to be eternal life, heaven, that I will get there and I'm going to hit my head and say, oh, I see, Lord. I understand it now. I get it. I didn't need to understand it before. And, the word says, wait on the Lord and be of good courage. Be of good strength. Just wait, I say, on the Lord. So I just trust in that. And I believe, Zeke, because you still a youngin'. You still a youngin', Zeke. The more you
He might be an Eagle fan, but he's still a young.
Yeah. The more you live and the more you experience, the more, because I feel your heart anyhow, and your mind is clear to me. You've made that very observable. But I also feel your heart, and you just wait on him. Wait on him. Some things are coming. Some things I prophesy over you. Some things are coming to you with your intelligence, with your caring nature, with your incisiveness, with your thirst for knowledge and science. Some things are coming your way. There is no contradiction, I tell you, and you're gonna see that. You're gonna see that one day.
Can't stop, won't stop, can't stop, I'm in my zone.
Part 1. We appreciate you for listening. Stay tuned. Part 2 drops May the 2nd. 3 voices, 3 opinions, 3 sides. 1 Equalizer, ZTF.